know, as experts in this space, that blockchain is a transformational technology that has the potential to upend not only how we think about our interaction with systems, but how we interact with each other and with systems of power. We didn't need John Oliver, as funny as he is, to explain to us the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain. In fact, we're so aware of that distinction that it may not occur to us that regulation and governance in the digital currency space, if we're not careful, could chip away at the technology in ways that could actually affect its potential and its ability to realize that potential for society as a general matter. We just heard about the web of regulations that exist in this space, the hype, the froth, the attention paid to this. As that begins to rationalize, as a space begins to shrink a little bit like this balloon, we need to be very mindful that if we don't self-govern, if we don't put into place principles to make sure that we are operating on a level playing field, it's going to be done for us. And what's being done right now is incredibly confusing. I think that's particularly true in the international space. I kind of think of those of us operating in this space and building businesses like a dog on a beach. Like last week, we went to the beach and we were so excited, we ran around, we got in the water, and now today we're at the same beach and we're on a leash and we can't do anything. Right? And that beach over there we can do whatever we want, and we see that happening, but we can't really do it here. It's quicksand, there's no certainty. I think we also think of regulation as this horrible thing. It's designed to ruin our fun, it's designed to pound our dollars into dust and make sure we're never gonna be able to realize any money or any wealth in this space. I really wanted a picture of a Lambo at the junkyard being crushed by one of those machines, but I couldn't find it, so you get this one instead. But that's not really how I think about regulation. I think, in my view, my grandmother, who I love dearly, really shouldn't be investing her life savings in altcoin on Kraken. And indeed, principles like fraud prevention and consumer protection are things that long predate the existence of blockchain, let alone digital currency. These are principles like antitrust laws and general regulation that even existed in ways in the Wild West. In the original Wild West, we had court-martials and magistrates and justices that popped up in frontier outposts, in some cases to prevent vigilante justice, but in some places to enact it. And again, we're a little bit in the Wild West of regulation, where we have the ability right now to sway and influence more than we will at points in the future. And let's be honest, when you have a foundation of security, you increase consumer confidence. One of the issues with sandboxes, like we have in the UK and other places, is while they're great for experimentation and openness and transparency, you're building a business model, and you can't really do that when the ground's changing underneath you. So I think of governance and regulation like a half pipe. Everyone goes through the same pipe, but when you're in the pipe, you can do whatever you want. You can do flips and twists and tricks and be incredibly creative, and yeah, you can break your hip, right? But if everyone's going down the same path, there's a level playing field and an ability to push aside regulation that may not be productive. Think about supply chain. I think it's hard to argue that Lucy and Ethel in this scenario would not have benefited from some rules around the frequency of the chocolate coming down that pipeline, the ability to plan, the ability to be certain about what's going to happen so that they could actually realize efficiencies and be creative and invent within this space. And is it even chocolate coming down the pipe? We know that in the blockchain space and ledger, it's not so much garbage in, garbage out, as garbage in forever. So what are we putting into it? Regulation that exists outside of this space is kind of essential in many industries in order to make sure that what we're tracking and tracing, we talk a lot about track and trace, right? We're tracking and tracing is real. It's meaningful. I think governance is nowhere more important in the space of digital identity, which is obviously a huge topic in our industry. I think about identity not just about my online presence, but it's really about who we are as people. It's about dignity and self-worth and the psychological components of identity that we don't think a lot about when we're coding. Imagine if in the middle of the night you had to flee your home, you had no papers, you had no ability to prove that you were who you say you were, and even more importantly in some cases, you couldn't prove that your children were your children. You couldn't prove that your spouse and you belonged together. And when you arrived, wherever you arrived, you had no ability to prove that you had educational credentials, no way to ascertain that you would be able to earn a living. So who are we trying to protect when we think about governance? Is it the most vulnerable among us? Is it people who are trafficked, forced into servitude, into slavery? Are these the people we're thinking about? Or are we more concerned about the marginal utility of the latest application that we're building? Governance can provide a framework to ensure inclusion. And it can be a little bit like a giant gorilla that either can crush us and chase us and stomp us, or can cradle a nascent technology, provide a little bit of structure around it, and provide some certainty in order to ensure that we're all able to get to the place we want to go and realize this amazing technology's potential. Thank you.